Hello, welcome back to Over and Over and Over Again. We're live. This is the Benfica versus Arsenal pre-match warm-up show. Hello, I'm Richard. Welcome back to my channel Over and Over and Over Again. We're currently live on YouTube, on Facebook and on Twitter. So first of all, wherever you are, please give this show a like. And as it just said there, please subscribe to the channel as well. That would be really much appreciated. This is going to be a show. We're going to look ahead to tomorrow night's big Europa League game. Benfica against Arsenal, the first leg, although both legs are away, but we'll come on to that as well in a little while. I've got a couple of guests joining me now. Hopefully someone else will be coming along a little bit later as well. First of all, he's our regular on the channel. He loves these shows. It's Melvin. Welcome back. How you doing?
Yeah, thanks. This is my kind of European debut, isn't it? Could be.
Well, it's kind of all their European debut because I've not really done a pre-European show before. So it's the first for everybody, really. So it's going to be good, hopefully. And to help us along and to give us a perspective from a Benfica point of view, he's actually got his kind of foot in both camps, if you like. It's Benfica and Arsenal fan, Mike. How you doing, Mike? Welcome to the channel.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, I'm sure it's great. It's great to have you on. So it'd be great to, get a little bit more understanding of how things are in Portugal with Benfica and stuff like that as well. I mean, where I wanted to start actually tonight was more looking at the fact that we've both got, as I sort of mentioned in the introduction there, it's a two-leg tie. Both legs are away from home for both teams. I mean, me and Melvin did speak about this on our show last week. I just really wondered what your kind of thoughts on it are, Mike, about sort of playing. Do you think it should have been maybe just one leg, or are you okay with how they've done it now?
I mean, given the hectic schedule, I wouldn't have been opposed to a one-leg match. With no fans, right, I think it makes it a little bit more difficult, right? There's no real home advantage. I think it's interesting that both legs are away, but the away goal still factors in, which I think is very interesting as well. So, it's been hectic for both clubs being in multiple competitions, playing every 3 days or so. So doing a one leg, I think would have made sense. But then again, as a fan and as a club, right, you think you're so used to the two-leg factor that it's almost like, well, if we had two matches, we could have approached it in a different way. So I'm not surprised. I think I'm more surprised at the fact that unfortunately, the away goal factor still counts, which is odd, I guess, to say the least.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing I find strange, where there's no home advantage. It's a away game for both legs. Both teams are away in both games, essentially. So it does seem crazy to have away goals. But I suppose they want to try to find a way of separating the teams if it ends up level on aggregate, I guess, rather than just going to penalties. I don't know. But yeah, that does seem, the whole thing seems a little bit crazy to me. I think like last season, a one-off game would have probably done for the knockouts in Europe this season. With the current situation, but it is what it is, and we're just going to have to now prepare it as a two-leg tie as though we would normally do. Just having to play both legs away from home. It's a shame actually, because obviously your stadium is one of the most famous stadiums in Europe, isn't it? It would have been. I know there would have been no fans there, but it would have been nice for the players to have experienced that, rather than playing in the empty bowl that's going to be the Olympic Stadium in Rome, which probably won't be the same with it for either club. I mean, in terms of you guys, and I mean, obviously, from a Benfica point of view, I know this season hasn't been going as well as the previous few seasons, has it for you? What's sort of the reason behind that?
The club's gone through an influx over the course of the last 5-6 years. The current president has been there for 17, 18 years now. At the time when Benfica last played Arsenal many years ago, which we'll touch on, that was almost the end of a good era for Benfica. The late 90s, early 2000s were rough. We went through new presidency. Early 2000s till about 2015, we went through a good phase. Jorge Jesus, or JJ as I'll refer to him, he was at the club. He won us quite a bit. We played some very good football, took us to 2 Europa League finals. Unfortunately, we lost to Chelsea and Sevilla. Last year, we struggled. We were ahead 7 points after the pandemic. Football came back. We completely threw it away, lost it to Porto, created a lot of friction at the club. We went and got JJ back, invested $10 million or 10 million euros in the coaching staff, which is a significant amount of money for a Portuguese club. We invested 100 million euros in player acquisitions this offseason, the largest investment this club's ever made in their history. We have a $25 million or 25 million euro striker that we signed from Almeria, Darwin Nunez, who is from a second division. We highest transfer ever in the Portuguese league, highest transfer ever for Benfica. So there's a lot of pieces. I feel like there's a lot going on in the background that's not really surfacing yet. There's a lot of friction with the president. There's rumors of cliques and divides in the dressing room. All of that combined, I think, is creating a lot of problems for the club. And it's funny, when the draw happened, Arsenal was in a difficult position. And now, fast forward a month and a half, 2 months later, it's almost like the roles are now reversed.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of what you just said there reminded me of what we was going through ourselves not that long ago, actually, quite a lot of that stuff. So, yeah, I think you're right in the sense that it does seem to have turned kind of full circle, really. I mean, I know you guys are about 10 points off the top, aren't you, at the
13,
moment? Is that right?
13.
Is it 13? Wow, okay. That's a long way to make up, isn't it?
Yep, it is.
But, not quite as far as we're behind our leaders in our division. But there you go, really. I mean, Melvin, do you know too much about what Benfica have been up to this season, or you've not really followed them that much? I'm
I
assuming.
haven't followed that much, to be honest with you, but I'm just amazed. I didn't even realise the two centre halves they got.
Yeah, both ex-Premier League,
and, Otamendi. I mean, you know, big names, very big names, and I didn't realise they played. You know, as I say, didn't know they played for Benfica. I mean, Benfica's always been a big club as far as I'm concerned, growing up. Always, obviously, because of the Eusebio link. You know, he was just he was not that far behind Pele. You know, they're very similar type players. You know, that he played a hell of a lot of games, Eusebio, didn't he? And he had a great scoring record, like 600 goals in around about 600 games.
Yep.
He was a gentleman as well. I mean, just an absolute fabulous guy to watch. I only watched him live once. I watched him live on the telly in the World Cup, but live I only watched him once, and that was a kind of a friendly. But no, Benfica's always the big team. And I was just shocked, like I said before. I thought we played them loads of times in the cup, loads of times.
Yeah.
I remember playing Benfica, and then when I look into it, it's all, as I say, load of friendlies.
Yeah, no, I assume we'd play them a lot more than what we have, actually, because you just assume that we have because it's such a big name in European football.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, the first time I was when I first started watching football, Benfica is one of the first clubs that I can remember hearing about, simply to do with the European Cup final in 1968 against Manchester United, which obviously was a big deal in England. So they'd always struck me as being a really big club, obviously, for that reason as well. And so, yeah, I was quite amazed that we've managed to avoid each other so often in European competitions through the years. I mean, even in the Europa League last couple of years where you've been in it, we've been in it, and we still haven't kind of got drawn against each other up until now. So, I mean, I know we just sort of spoke off air about it. I mean, it's not something that you're particularly looking forward to, is it, Mike, playing against Arsenal?
It's not. No, like I said, my family's Portuguese. Benfica's in my blood since I was a child. Arsenal, the Premier League wasn't televised here in the United States until late 90s. So for me, it was really Benfica. That was really all I watched. Once I started begin to see the Premier League here in the United States, Arsenal was the club that I fell in love with, Henry, and a bunch of those guys. So, he's one of my childhood idols in terms of football, him and Rui Costa. So it's going to be a difficult one. Obviously, your childhood club against kind of the club that you have, and you share a similar emotion for, but it's hard to describe the feeling, but it's not necessarily the same, right? So people always say, well, it's a win-win for you, right? One of your teams is going to go through. Well, it's not the case because I'd rather both of them be in the next phase, right? But unfortunately, I can't have that. So it's going to be quite interesting and a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least.
Yeah, no, I can imagine it must be tough. I mean, I suppose like you said, I think people maybe have a perception that, you know, if your hometown club, if you like, play against your other team that you've been following, it must be like a dream. But I guess it isn't in reality, because, like you said, it'd be nice for them both to be in the next round for you, wouldn't it? But unfortunately, one of us is going to bow out at this stage of the competition, which is the same stage that we obviously got knocked out last season against Olympiacos, which was a bit of a shock. So we're hoping, obviously, to do a bit better this time. I mean, how much priority do you think Benfica is showing to the Europa League? Obviously, with your league campaign not really going to plan. I know you're still you're in domestic cup, aren't you, still, as well? But how much emphasis do you think, and how much priority is the Europa League for Benfica now?
I think it's an important one, right? Benfica hasn't won a European competition since '62, so it's been a very long time since we've managed it. We've made it to 2 Europa League finals with JJ many years ago, and we lost both. So in terms of priorities going into the season, the Europa League isn't our top, right? The Portuguese league is always the top one. Being 13 points off the top makes it a little bit difficult. We're in the Portuguese Cup still. We're in the semifinal. And we talked about it on our Benfica podcast the other night. Is I almost feel like it's important for Benfica, but for Arsenal, I feel it's a little bit more important, because this is essentially the ticket to Champions League almost, right? Top four is still there, but I feel as if the Europa League campaign, similar to what we did 2 years ago, right? That would have been the ticket into the Champions League. Whereas for Benfica, it's not very competitive at the top, in a sense, right? So top 3, you're going to go to Champions League. Top 2 go direct. Third place has to qualify. So they're still in reaching distance of a top 3 finish to get us to the Champions League. So yes, it's important winning. Right? If we come out of this season and finish second or third, don't win Europa League and win the domestic cup, fans aren't going to be happy, right? If we don't win the Portuguese league, but win the Portuguese Cup and win the Europa League, right, then is it a good season? I think so, right? So I would say we're going to invest a lot in it and make sure that we field the best team. But in terms of importance, I almost feel like it's slightly more important to Arsenal at this stage than maybe for Benfica. I don't know if you guys disagree with that.
What do you think, Melvin? Would you say that's probably about right? Well, seeing how I support the Arsenal, I think it's far more important for the Arsenal. You know, it's you know, I think it is very important for the Arsenal where we are. You know, we've got really nothing else to win. To qualify for Europe, that's probably our best chance of qualifying for Europe. And we want to get more money in with what's going on. We want to get a more prestigious place in world football to attract the players as well. So it is very, very important that we have a good run and actually win it, obviously. Whether we do that or not is another kettle of fish. But we've got to put not all our eggs, but a lot of our eggs in this basket. Don't use it as like we perhaps would have done in the when we played knockout stages, the league stages. We may not have played a lot of kids. You can't do that. You've got to take it very, very seriously.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think so as well. I mean, I'm of the mindset anyway that being Arsenal, we should try and win every single game in every single competition that we're in. I don't like prioritising things. You know, the next game's the only one for me that matters. We want to win that game in whatever competition it's in, and unfortunately, that's not the way football is these days, I guess. Certain competitions do take slight more priority, and I think the Europa League was always up there at the start of the season for Arsenal anyway, and I think now it's become even more important because of the way the league campaign's gone and the fact that we're out of the FA Cup, which we were holders of, and we're out of the League Cup and everything else. So I think it's massively important now for Arsenal. I agree, but Benfica are in a similar situation because your season hasn't gone to plan in the league either for you. So I think it is probably a priority for both clubs now, which should make it a good couple of games because of how important it is. Both teams are going to want to try and get through, and it's maybe quite early in the competition for such a game, really. It's a sort of game that you expect maybe quarter-final, semi-final kind of tie as opposed to the last 32, I guess, but it's just the way that the draw has gone. Steve there in the chat. How you doing, Steve? Thanks for tuning in. He says he understands your position, Mike, because he's a big Arsenal fan with Sunderland connection. So when we played Sunderland, he feels the same way that you kind of feel about this one. So yeah, I guess it is tough. Ryan's in the chat. Have you think about the dreaded Benfica curse? What's that all about?
That's the Bella Gutmann curse. He was a Benfica manager, won the Europe at the time European competition. It wasn't Champions League at the time, but when he left, he said Benfica will never win another European competition without me.
Oh, excuse
Wow.
me. I think I know this story.
Yep,
What
we've never won
nationality
since.
was he? He wasn't.
He
He
was
wasn't
Hungarian.
Portuguese.
Hungarian.
That's it. Very, very famous. That was. I heard a
Yep.
30-minute podcast on it. A podcast I listened to, and it was unbelievable. And they went to his grave or something, didn't they?
The last
After
time
a
we
few
went to the
years.
Europa League final, we
That's
went.
it.
They visited his grave, and
That's
we
it.
have
It's a
never won it
mark.
since. I think we've been to five finals since he left,
Yeah.
and we've never won any.
And they
Wow.
got rid of him for no good reason as well, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a divide in the club, and he ended up leaving. But yeah, he said, I think he ended up going to Porto, our rival, after that, if I'm not mistaken. But he said, if this Benfica will never win another European competition without me,
Thought it
and
rang a bell when you said it.
it's
Oh
it's
dear.
held true until now, or up until now, I
Wow.
guess.
A great story. The whole story is great. The whole. So I would listen to
No, I
that
mean
20 minutes.
that is unbelievable, really. I mean, in a way, I guess I'm kind of hoping that's true for this season because then it means that we might have more chance of getting through. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. But no, I mean, I've never heard that before. Actually, to be fair, that's a great
I only
story.
heard it a few months ago, Richard, about 3 or 4 months ago. On when I was going for a walk on one of my podcasts, I had that on. Some guy I listened to, and he was just I think he was talking to the grandson or something of the guy. It's an amazing story, and I thought, cool. How come I've never heard of this before? You know?
Yeah, no, I haven't. So I'm going to look into that now after the show and read up on it because it does sound a fascinating story, actually. And I mean, just what a strange thing to happen, actually, and the fact they haven't won one since. Maybe Arsene
Yeah.
Wenger said that when he left Arsenal. Arsenal will never win the Premier League again since he went, and that's
Said
so
it
far
secretly.
true as well. Yeah, maybe he's done a curse without us knowing about it. Perhaps I don't know, but anyway, we'll see what happens. I mean, I don't know about winning the Premier League. That seems a long way off for us. I mean, what's the Portuguese league like at the moment in terms of sort of the quality and the depth of it? I mean, usually, like you said, there's obviously Porto, Sporting Lisbon, always teams like they. Braga have done well, haven't they, in more recent times? What's the league like at the moment? Is it a strong league, do you think?
It's tough to judge, right? If I was to say, Sporting hasn't won the Portuguese league since 2001, right? So and they've always been considered a top three team. If they win the league this year, I think it'll be their 19th in their history. Benfica's on 37 with the most. So between those top three, if they competed in the Premier League, I think they'd be fighting for fourth, fifth, sixth, maybe. The level of competition is, apart from those top, everyone else is fairly mediocre. I would say the bottom half of the league would struggle in the championship. I think there's just not enough money, right? You think about the money that the relegated teams in the Premier League get, right, is significantly more than the champion in Portugal gets, right? So just for context, right, it's significant difference. So and obviously there's no broadcasting money, right, like in the Premier League and things of that nature. So it makes it difficult. So apart from those three, Braga stepped up in the last couple of years. Guimarães has built a better team in the last couple of years. But in terms of comparison, Portuguese league level competition to the Premier League is honestly like night and day. I don't even think they can be in the same sentence, to be honest with you.
I was going to ask. So sorry, I was just going to say to Mike, you've got to go abroad to buy players, haven't you? You can't buy any from Portugal because Wolves buy all them.
Yeah, they got all of them.
Well, they're doing all right, aren't they? They're doing all right with their Portuguese players, aren't they, Wolves? So, there's been some great Portuguese players playing the Premier League, actually, over the years, hasn't there, to be fair? I mean, I was going to ask you, actually, Mike, about, obviously, in the group stages in Europa League, you played against Rangers, didn't you, from Scotland? And I know that, I think they, did you draw with them twice?
We drew 3-3 and 2-2, which is interesting. The first match was at home. We were up 1-0 3 minutes into the match. We ended up Otamendi getting a red card about 19 minutes in. Up until that red card, Rangers didn't even get near our goal. Rangers ended up going up 3-1. Benfica made it 3-2 and tied it in the 93rd minute or something like that. And then the away fixture, we were down 2-0. Benfica scored in about the 70th minute, and then we tied it maybe with about 10 minutes left. So that was probably well, it was 100% our biggest competition in the group stage. I think in that first match it would have been different, and I think we would have topped the group if Otamendi didn't get that red card, because up until that moment, Rangers hadn't even gotten anywhere near our goal, and we were up 1-0 at the time. But yeah, it was a difficult 2 matches for sure.
Yeah, and obviously they ended up winning a group as well, didn't they? Which means that's how we've got drawn against you guys, because obviously we won our group as well. Shane in the chat there is asking you a bit of a question on the way that the Benfica style of play. How would you describe it? Do they do a high press, or do they play on counter attacks? And what's the usual formation?
So JJ's been playing your typical 4-4-2, but the thing with him is he likes to try to surprise people sometimes. So when you least expect it, he'll try to pull a rabbit out of a hat. In terms of a high press, we try to play a high press at times. We don't do it for very often. This team still lacks a lot of consistency. Benfica today is one of those teams that wants to be in possession, but isn't very good in possession at the moment, if that makes sense, right? So a lot of teams will end up giving us the ball. We'll circulate it back and forth, similar to what Arsenal did when they went through that phase where you kind of work it up, get there, don't know what to do with it, and then they hit you in transition and you're down a goal, right? And it's like, what the hell just happened, right? Like, we were just doing everything we needed to do, and now we're losing. How did that even happen? So it's very inconsistent in terms of how we play. The formation's been consistent in terms of 4-4-2. We'll talk about the formations and the predicted lineups later on, but I could see JJ trying to spur a surprise here and trying to, one up with, they're expecting this, I'm going to try that. But yeah, I would expect a high press early on, then they'll drop off. They'll circulate, but we don't have those players who are going to want to get in behind, which I think suits Arsenal because, the back line isn't the quickest. At least the central defenders aren't the quickest. Bellerin's lost a little bit of pace. Cedric's not the quickest either. So I think the two teams almost kind of lock into each other in a such way that I foresee two very tactical, boring matches unless somebody scores early tomorrow.
If your coach is watching, I could give him a bit of advice. I'm sure he's not, but if he is, he should, to be something different, he should put 8 men on Willian if he plays. That would stifle us out completely.
Yeah,
that's what he should do.
The danger man.
Yeah,
the danger
put 8
man.
men on him, only 8.
Yeah. Yeah, leave Saka alone, because don't worry about Saka. He's no good. Don't worry about him. He's fine. Just let him crack on. Yeah. I mean, you watch a lot of the Premier League, Mike. I mean, who would you maybe compare Benfica's style of play to more in the Premier League then? So that maybe we can get an idea of what to expect. Is there a team that plays a similar way? Probably Wolves, since they're full of Portuguese players.
Yeah, I would honestly say we play a similar style to Arsenal. The difference is the individual elements are different. Right. When Arsenal has the luxury of having an 80 million pound Pepe on the bench, every other match, Benfica doesn't have that luxury. Right. So in the front three, there's much more difference makers. They're more experienced. They're a different caliber of player. But in terms of the style, I would say it's fairly similar in the sense of they want to build from the back. Arsenal does it with Xhaka and Partey, dropping in that extra midfielder in between the center backs, bringing your center backs out wide, coming out playing that way. Benfica does the same thing. We play with Weigl dropping in between Otamendi and Vertonghen, playing that pass out of the back and then building from there. So I would say it's very comparable to Arsenal's style of play. Again, the difference maker is the quality of player that Arsenal has at their disposal that Benfica doesn't have at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I've been hearing good things about the guy. Is it the Brazilian Everton? Is he one of your best players? I've been hearing some good things about him.
So he's one of those guys that arrived with a lot of hype, 20 million euro acquisition from Grêmio, Brazilian international. He's got a lot of flair. technically very good, but he's playing in a system that's very different from what he's used to. When he played in Brazil for Grêmio, he played in almost a 4-3-3, more of an attacking type of player, didn't have to defend very much, giving him the ability to be in that final third all the time, and not have to worry about tracking back. In this 4-4-2 system that JJ is playing now, it forces him to come back and defend, right? So you're almost losing that because by the time he gets there, right, he's completely shot for energy, right? So where he needs to be to make those decisions, he's not more often than not because you're building up so slow.
Yeah, that reminds me of a certain player that we once had.
Yep, I was going to say that.
Very similar kind of issue seems to be going on there. Another player I wanted to briefly talk about as well. Obviously, another player that's playing in the Premier League, Abel Tarat as well. Of course, is playing regularly for you guys now, isn't he?
He is. He's been with the club 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years. He spent a lot of time in the B team. He, similar to the issues that he had at Milan, and I think towards the end of his career at QPR, he had a lot of off-the-field situations. I don't think he took football seriously. He, with the manager that we got before JJ, who left and got replaced with JJ, Bruno Lage, he was in the youth system, so he knew Tarat very well. He gave him a shot last year. He came into himself. He flourished. He started to really play well. He started to take things seriously. He started the year decent. He ended up getting COVID about November, December timeframe. And since he came back, he was a shadow of himself. He was probably one of the most criticized over the course of the last 2 months. He's one of those players, and those of you who are familiar with him, is he always likes to play that risky pass. Always, right? If he's got a 5-yard pass or he's got a pass that's 25 yards and he's going to try to split 3 defenders, he's going to go with the most difficult solution, right? If out of 3 times, 2 of the times it works, it's brilliant, right? We'll take that one time. His problem is that he was missing it 3 out of 3 times and constantly putting the team on the back foot, right? Because now the team's coming up, building up slowly. You lose that ball in the midfield. Now we're in transition going the other way, right? Similar to what Arsenal used to do a lot is in the Wenger years, or towards the end, right? You saw a lot of Arsenal's players chasing the opposition the other way, right? And our defenders are exposed. And Benfica was suffering with that early on in the season. The last 3 games, he's looked a lot better. He's been more accurate with his passing. He hasn't tried that, risky pass as often. So we'll see how he progresses for the rest of the season. But he's one of those guys that you don't know what you're going to get with him. Either you're going to get this amazing technical guy who with his feet is brilliant, or this guy that's going to unbalance your team more than he's going to unbalance the opposition.
Yeah, and I think that maybe explains why he didn't perhaps make much of a career in the Premier League in the end. For that reason. I mean, I never watched a lot of him, but I remember him. Obviously, he played for Tottenham for a while as well, didn't he? And QPR, you mentioned, and he always looked like he had ability, but he never quite the consistency. And like you said, maybe his mind was maybe not always focused on football itself, was it? I think he's maybe one of them kind of characters, really. So that's probably why. But I mean, obviously he's making a good career for himself at Benfica. If you said he's been there for quite a long time, he's obviously doing well. So maybe he's kind of turned things around for himself a little bit better, which is obviously good. For his career as well, I guess. We will come back obviously to the game tomorrow. I just really wanted to maybe look back on a couple of other little things. So if we maybe start with this, it probably won't take that long actually in reality. Yeah, as we were saying before, this is only the second time that we've obviously Arsenal and Benfica have been drawn against each other in European competition. The previous time was in 1991 in what was still the European Cup. I think that was the last year before it became the Champions League, and I think it was the second round, wasn't it? And we drew 1-1 at the Stadium of Light, and then I was really confident that we would go through at Highbury. We did take an early lead, and I don't think I've ever felt as much disappointment at the end of a game as I did at the end of that particular one when Benfica won in extra time. I mean, was you at that game, Melvin? What do you remember about that?
I remember, like you say, we went 1-0, like Colin Pate scored, and it was like, get the cigars out, boys. And all of a sudden, they got the equaliser, and it went to extra time. And you had a Russian playing for you, Yukan. His name is Yukan.
There was 2 Russians. Kulkov as well, wasn't it?
That's
So
it.
Kulkov played for Benfica as well. Yeah, Kulkov scored, but Isaias scored both goals, the other 2 goals at Highbury.
That's right.
Yeah.
But one of them finished up. I remember going at the end of his career, right at the end, he went to Millwall. He went to Millwall, and I think he just done it for the money. I think basically because I saw him play that game for Benfica. He looked outstanding. He looked unbelievable. And in extra time, the Arsenal players couldn't put their feet up, and he was just going past them like nothing. He really looked a terrific player for the 90 minutes, and definitely in extra time. And when he went to Millwall, I thought, what's going on here? And he was nothing like the player. But that night, as I say, we've done a few games like that in Europe, haven't we, Richard? Where we've drawn the away leg, got the first goal, and still got beat. We did it in Chelsea in the semi-finals of the Europe thing when Bridges scored that goal. Right, we did it there. We did it last season at Olympiacos, didn't we? Did it then, and we did it against Benfica. It's like, oh my God, we're better off not scoring, aren't we? Really, got more chance. So
maybe. I mean, that I say that I've never felt. I can't remember ever feeling as disappointed after that. Since then, either actually at one game, because I was just so excited about getting through. Because I mean, it was the only time I've ever seen Arsenal play in what was the old European Cup. Because obviously we were banned the time we'd won the league before, and the time before that I wasn't old enough to remember it. So for me, it was a massive competition that year, and I really wanted us to go and win it. And to get knocked out like that was so disappointing. When it was a second goal, obviously in extra time, because then we needed to score another 3, didn't we, to go through our substitute. And I knew we were out. There was still half an hour to go or something.
Yeah.
I've just never felt so disappointed watching the game of football in my life before. It was heartbreaking, really. But I suppose George Graham did say, didn't he, that he learned a lot from that game, and it helped him to build the team that won the Cup Winners' Cup a couple of years later. So maybe it was a good thing. Maybe in overall, it just didn't feel like it at the time. I mean, do you remember that game, Mike? Do you remember much about that?
I was young. I was only 4 at the time, but I've watched back both. Both of them are on YouTube. I found them both online, and I remember growing up. My dad, I remember he went to go watch at a local pub, and he said it was one of the most. To this day, he says it is the most amazing Benfica match he's ever watched in his life. He told me, Isaias was an absolute machine that night. That first goal that he scored, and then he scored again in extra time. But I've seen them both, and in that second leg, both sides had a number of chances to score. Benfica just got the luck of the draw in that extra time.
Well, you had the fitter guys. I mean, you had the guy there that made the difference. You know what's strange about what I remember about that game as well? I don't know if my mind's playing tricks with me, which it normally does, is that we just signed Ian Wright around that time.
Yeah. Right,
I think we might have actually, I don't know if he was presented to the crowd or not before the game, but that was definitely we just signed him. And people were thinking he could have played the next round, couldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the thing. Yeah.
Because I remember thinking, next round Ian Wright's going to play for us. Fantastic. Yeah. And that was it. He couldn't play, could he? Obviously.
Yeah. No, I mean, I remember Tony Adams missed an open goal in that second half of that game, hit the post from about 2 yards, and I'll never forgive him for that, because if he'd scored, I think we would have gone through. And it's like, what are you doing? I mean, he's Tony Adams, and I suppose you have to forgive him, really. But that was a shocking miss. That he missed kicks in front of an open goal in front of North Bank and hit the post. But anyway, wasn't to be for us. I mean, I know we said before about it. There's been several friendlies, hasn't there? I mean, I remember one game in the Emirates Cup. Was that the one when Sanogo scored a few goals? That was against Benfica, wasn't it?
He did. I think he got a hat trick. Yeah, I think it was 5-2 or something like that final score.
Yeah. I remember that one.
We're getting the statue outside the ground ready for him now, haven't we? It's not quite finished yet, the statue after that game.
That match, actually, ironically, I remember Reece Nelson had one of the best performances I've ever seen him have in an Arsenal. And I thought, this is the season. This is the season Reece Nelson is going to grow into himself, and he's going to show what he's capable of. And we're still waiting for that moment, I feel.
Still waiting.
I think we'll be waiting a long time as well, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if he's quite ever gonna hit those heights. I agree, he had a great game. He set up most of the goals, didn't he, that particular game? Yeah, he did have a great game, but he hasn't quite really pushed on, has he? But I mean, is there any other sort of friendlies against Arsenal that you can remember, Mark? I can't really remember too many others. I know that Emirates Cup one's one that kind of stuck in my mind.
Yeah, Arsenal traveled to Benfica Stadium, like I said, maybe about 9, 10 years ago to play in the Eusebio Cup, which is again similar to the Emirates Cup. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Arsenal ended up winning 2-1 in that match. But again, it's one of those, you're rotating your squad, so there's not really a level of competitiveness there. But yeah, unfortunately, or I guess fortunately for me, we haven't met in anything official since '91.
No, I'll say I was amazed when I discovered that. Actually, I mean, I couldn't think off the top of my head any time that we played Benfica. I just assumed that we must have done at some stage in a group stage of something or other. But no, we haven't. So it's been a long time coming, I guess. This game, I suppose it was long overdue. It's been, hasn't it? So it's nice to maybe finally get it played. Well, it is for us. Maybe I say not props for you so much. Now, go on, Melvin.
I've been to one. The Champions Challenge Cup. I went to Arsenal Benfica. The champions, they won the league. You won the league in '71. It must have been. You must have won the league. We won the double in '71, and we had August just before the season started, a pre-season. We played you first away, but we got beat 2-0. But I didn't go to that. I went to the home leg. We won 6-2. It was an amazing summer evening. It was beautiful. It wasn't a Saturday. It was a summer's evening, I remember. And it was just every time we hit the ball, we scored. It's one of those games. It got a bit nasty, actually. The referee, there was a bit of one of the goals that the Benfica weren't too happy about. Could have been offside or something. And they all went round the referee. And the ref, after the game, someone said, "Did you book any of them then?" He says, "No, but I've reported them all." We brought them all to the FA, which the FA can't do anything about anyway. Benfica. But that was it was great to see because it was just after we did the double. We hadn't seen them play since the double. So you can imagine the atmosphere that night when the team came on the field, and it was just like a festival. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant to watch.
And I mean, really Benfica must have had a good side then as well, because obviously they got to the European Cup final '68, didn't they? So they must have had a decent team then as well.
Yeah, Eusebio played. He didn't play the whole game. He played the first half, but I think Eusebio played. There's some other players, well-known players. Just going back to the '91 game, I noticed. I didn't know this before. The manager, who was the manager in '91 at Benfica?
Eriksson.
Wasn't it Sven-Göran Eriksson?
Yep.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Funny that. Yeah, how his career ended up, and he ended up coming to England and being manager of England as well. So it was. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, it was. But yeah, that was quite a disappointing game. I don't think I've ever really completely got over that, actually, especially now, because that was the very last season ever of the European Cup, as it was as well. So that was our only opportunity ever to win it, and we missed it. But anyway, hopefully the Champions League will come around one day. We never know, we might do, but I'm not that confident. Maybe we've got a curse on us as well when it comes to European trophies, I think, because we've lost our last 5 finals as well. So maybe George Graham put a curse on us when he last won us a European trophy. It certainly seems to be the case. There's just another little thing that we always do. There's not a great list of this time. There's a few though. I've managed to find a few, so I'm sure it'll be quite good. Yeah, there's actually been a few more than I thought, actually, when I looked into it a little bit more. Obviously, the first one we need to come to is obviously this dude who's obviously playing for us at the moment. He did play for Benfica, didn't he, for quite a while, actually. He was played 132 games for Benfica, scored 6 goals. So he had a decent career. That was obviously before he went to Chelsea for the first time, wasn't it? What did you make of him at Benfica?
He's a very beloved player at the club. He came to Benfica when he was a very young kid from Brazil. He got his chance in the club, I think, maybe halfway through his first year. I think it was due to an injury, and he just quickly established himself as one of the anchors in that back line. He has expressed his interest in wanting to come back and retire. I don't know if it'll happen or not, but he's definitely one player that Benfica fans hold near and dear to their heart for sure.
Unlike many of the Arsenal fans, unfortunately. I mean, I happen to really like him myself personally. I think he's still got a lot to offer. I think he's been been one of our most consistent defenders this season. I mean, he's been offered apparently been offered a new 1-year contract, hasn't he? What are you making of that at Arsenal? Do you think that's a good move from the club, or would you rather maybe he did go back to Benfica next season?
I personally like him at Arsenal. I think he brings a little bit of a different approach to that back line than maybe some of the other players, right? He likes to have the ball at his feet. He's capable of playing out of the back. He's capable of playing a long ball to relieve some of that pressure, to break some of those lines. Yes, he's capable of making a mistake, but I feel like us Arsenal fans are in a phase right now where every little thing is scrutinized and criticized to the extreme. And I think because he's a former Chelsea player, I think it adds to that. Which I don't think is something that we've seen, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but for example, in Portugal, right, Otamendi signed for Benfica as part of the Ruben Dias transfer, and Portuguese fans look at, you know, your past clubs as like this thing you can't do, right? You played for Porto, you can't play for Benfica. It's just not allowed, right? They look at it very negatively, and I almost get the sense that in England, it's looked at, but it doesn't really faze the fan in general, right? But I feel like, at least for Arsenal fans in this situation, him being a former Chelsea player is like, no, we don't like him right from the get-go. He hadn't even played one match for the club, and it's just like, he's an old player. We don't need him. And then again, I think he got a slow start to the club and life at the club, and it made it a little bit difficult. But I personally think he brings a different dynamic. I think he brings a little bit of leadership and grit to that back line that we don't have. But I guess to each their preference and what they want and what they like.
No, I totally agree with you. I think he's a really important player for us, actually. I think his experience in the back line has helped some of the younger players such as Gabriel and Pablo Mari and Rob Holding as well. I think his experience has been really crucial this season. And I personally would like him to stay another season and help those young guys develop a bit more. And maybe William Saliba, if he comes back as well, I think he'd be vital to have. But I understand that the fans in general aren't really on his side, and I think that Cech had the same problem actually coming from Chelsea and coming to Arsenal. He was never totally, the fans never really warmed to him either. And I think it's certain clubs. I don't think it's necessarily in general, but I think it's certain clubs in England in particular. Obviously, Tottenham being the main one. Not many players move between those two clubs today, very often, and it seems to be quite a lot of movement between Chelsea and Arsenal in recent years, and that seems to have created quite a lot of negativity just simply for the fact that they played for Chelsea previously. Like Willian's going through that a little bit now, although that's more to do with how bad he's playing rather than the Chelsea connection, I think, as well. But that always gets thrown in, doesn't it? Another ex-Chelsea player comes to Arsenal and he's a flop and whatever. So yeah, we maybe get that a little bit with Chelsea simply because a number of players lately that seem to have come across to us. I mean, what about yourself, Melvin? Would you be happy for David Luiz to get another year, or do you think maybe at the end of the season he should call it a day and I'll say maybe go back to Benfica?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing him another year as a squad player. You know, the experience he brings to the side is very important. And as you say, we've got a couple of youngsters. We've got Gabriel's young. Mari's not so much young, but he's inexperienced at this level, in this division. And also, if Saliba comes back, and also there's a little vibe going about around the club that how important he is to the other members of the team. All the youngsters seem to love him. Yeah. So that's not a bad thing. I would have thought, rather than going back to Benfica, I got the feeling I might give him another year's contract and then he'd go on the staff. Some form of coaching. Maybe.
Yeah, it's a rumor that I just saw.
He's got that little thing about him, doesn't he? That leadership.
Yeah, no, he has. I mean, Bukayo Saka's actually talked about David Luiz quite a lot, what a great influence he's been on him. So, I mean, that just goes to show how important he is to the squad, if not necessarily always playing next season if he's still at the club. I mean, if it is a dream of his to finish his playing career at Benfica, you could maybe see him going back there for a year and then maybe coming back to Arsenal in a coaching role or even Chelsea possibly, because he obviously spent more of his career there maybe. But yeah, he certainly seems like he's got that leadership about him, and he could certainly maybe be an under 23s coach or something like that, possibly, when he retires from playing. So we'll see. Another player obviously played for both clubs and actually played in that 91 game for Benfica. Obviously, this guy.
Oh, yeah. That is Mike.
I do. Stefan Schwarz, of course I know.
That's it. Yeah.
He was at Benfica first.
He was, yeah, and obviously he played in that game in '91, didn't he? In that Champions League, European Cup game, he had a good game. I don't know whether that was what maybe drew him to the attention of George Graham playing in those 2 games against us, because obviously he did come to Arsenal a few years later. He didn't really stay at Arsenal long. 1 season he had. I thought he was a technical.
Was it only 1 season? Was it only
Yeah,
1
1 season. Yeah, it was that
really
difficult season.
Left foot, didn't he?
Yeah, it was.
I think.
Yeah, it was that difficult season when George Graham left the club. He was at that season, and I think there was a few issues going on. But I thought technically he was a good player, but he never seemed very happy. I didn't think he never seemed to play like he was happy. I don't know if he was the same at Benfica, was he, when he played for you guys?
He was there 3 years. He left in '94. We signed him from Malmo in '91. I mean, again, I was younger at the time, but I've seen plenty of highlights and watched some old matches. He was a solid player for the club. He was versatile. He was able to play in a few different positions. One thing that stood out, my dad used to say when I was younger, is he was the type of player who would foul and run away. He rarely got yellow cards because he would foul and get out of there very quickly. So, but he was a very good player, and he actually works with the club still. He's worked in commentary for the club's channel. He's very still connected with the club. My parents, when they went on vacation to Portugal a few years ago, he was eating in the stadium's restaurant there as well. My dad got a picture with him, so he's still very connected to the club.
Oh, excellent. I mean, I say he never really had a long career at Arsenal, although he did score a really important goal in the semi-final of the Cup Winners' Cup against Sampdoria. We were just about to go out, a couple of minutes to go. He took a free kick from about 30 yards and somehow he scored. Probably the highlight of his whole time at Arsenal, actually. A great goal that was. I think he scored another goal against Man City as well, but that was it. But yeah, I mean, he always struck me as I was expecting more from him, if you see what I mean, because he looked a really good player. He never quite. It was a difficult season he was at Arsenal, to be fair. I mean, what do you remember about him, Melvin, apart from his great left foot?
Well, I would imagine that he would have scored a lot more goals. He had a great shot, but didn't seem to score that many goals. He was very steady. He reminded me of an upgrade on Xhaka. You know, he can stop the person and he can also move forward with the ball. I would, the same age, I'd take Stefan Schwartz any day of the week.
Yeah, actually, I suppose a comparison with Granit Xhaka's quite good, actually, because I suppose they're a similar sort of player, aren't they? Left-footed, central midfield, defensive kind of midfield player who's got a good left-footed shot. Maybe scores from outside the box a few times. So yeah, maybe that's quite a good comparison, actually. I mean, I don't know how maybe at a peak Stefan Schwartz would fit into this current team. I'm not quite sure actually how that would work. It would have been interesting to see. I say because he played for Arsenal at a difficult time when we didn't have a very good side. We bypassed the midfield completely in them days to get the ball to Ian Wright. And I think he would have spent the whole time with the ball going over the top of his head. So that's probably why he left after a year, because he didn't really enjoy it, because he never seemed to enjoy it. But anyway, I thought he potentially looked like he was a good player. Another player another player I didn't realise actually had played for Benfica. I don't think he played very often for them, was this dude. You remember him?
Yeah. That's the same season, wasn't it? Glenn Helder, wasn't it?
He came the same.
Oh, yes. Glenn Helder.
Yeah. Glenn Helder,
Dutch.
Glenn Helder. Yeah.
I didn't realize he played for Arsenal now that you mention it.
Yeah, he was in and out of Arsenal's team. He joined us again at a difficult time just before George Graham left. And he played 39 games for Arsenal in total over a couple of years. He did go out on loan a couple of times as well. And I think that when he was at Benfica, he got a really serious injury that pretty much ended his career. Is that right?
He did. He was at Benfica in the beginning of those dark days for the club. If I'm not mistaken, he might have been at Benfica on loan, now that I think of it, from Arsenal.
Possibly.
If I'm not
He might well have been. He did go on loan a few times, yeah.
And he may have been there during the time of, I want to say it was either Graham Souness was the manager or Paulo Autuori, a Brazilian manager. But that was literally the beginning of the end for Benfica in those 5-6 years. Was just, we had some bad players, some bad managers. It was a nightmare. I didn't even realize that he played for Arsenal, to be honest with you.
Well,
he didn't play much for Benfica either.
No, he didn't play much for either club.
For that making Bergkamp's first goal.
He did, yeah. That was he got an assist for that. Yeah, he did, yeah. Very,
very good run. When he played against Norwich, I think it was first game he played for his debut. He looked like a world beater, didn't he?
Yeah,
no, remember that game.
Yeah, he had a
looked
couple of decent games.
unbelievable.
Yeah,
God,
he did have a
speed
couple of
of
good
him.
games. He had nice hair as well, actually. I thought he looked a bit like Lionel
Yeah.
Richie or something like that, didn't he? I thought he was a pretty cool dude, actually. But anyway, he never quite made it. I mean, you just mentioned there, actually, Mike, about Graham Souness being manager, and you connecting that with bad times for the club. I mean, the two kind of have gone hand in hand throughout Graham Souness's managerial career, haven't they? Wherever he's gone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm not surprised to hear that, I must be honest. And another player actually who was actually signed for Benfica by Graham Souness was this guy, of course, very famous in Arsenal's history.
Yep. He
I
was
didn't know he played for
terrible at
Benfica.
Benfica. Terrible.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, he was signed by Graham Souness actually for Benfica. I don't know whether that was because obviously he played for Liverpool before that, and maybe that was why Graham Souness had signed him. I don't think his Benfica career went particularly well. I think he played for the reserve team quite a lot more, didn't he, than the first team?
No, he played for the first team. He played for the B team maybe once or twice, but his time at the club, I mean, it's the end of his career. I think he played one more season after that elsewhere. But he was just, right, knowing what he did for Arsenal in '89 at Anfield, and then to associate that to his one season at Benfica, he was, for me, probably the worst signing that I can recall in Benfica's history. He was very slow. He was constantly playing the ball back. He reminded me of Danielson at Arsenal.
Really?
I hated watching Danielson play because he was very just slow on the ball. He was always passing the ball back. Michael Thomas was the same way. And he, in fairness, he didn't have a good team around him because, again, those were the dark years of Benfica. But for a player of his experience and his caliber and having been through what he had been through, would have expected a little bit more. But I would probably say arguably one of the worst signings that I can recall at Benfica.
Well, I mean, that's a bit surprising. Like it's about it maybe was at the end of his career. I mean, obviously at Arsenal, I thought for 3 or 4 years, either side of the sort of Anfield game, he was brilliant for Arsenal. His runs from midfield, getting on the end of things, scoring goals, his energy was just fantastic. I mean, in a way, it was great. It was him that scored that goal as well, you know, because he had the coolest head. Generally, he was pretty laid back, wasn't he? And for him to be in that situation, you can imagine that other players would have not kept their cool in the way that he did. I know he'd missed a chance a bit earlier in that game, but that was just it just summed him up really, that goal for me, just how cool and calm he was, and a great player for Arsenal. And of course he did well for Liverpool as well, didn't he? Scored in the FA Cup final for them as well, so he certainly had a decent career before obviously before the days of him going to Benfica. I mean, obviously you must have good memories of Michael Thomas, do you, Melvin?
Oh, terrific. He was a great player. I think we started him at right back.
He did, right.
Yeah. And he was okay. But when they put him in midfield, his energy, his enthusiasm, as you say, he could get in the end of a ball. He was a box-to-box player, and he was with all the and he was one of the kids with the Rocastles, the Mersons, the Davises, that area was around, and they all grew up together, a lot of them, and they played together, a bit like we've got a little bit today now, and it was great to see. And he just looked like he enjoyed every game he played.
Yeah, I mean, funny enough, I a little while ago I'd kind of compared Ainsley Maitland-Niles a little bit to Michael Thomas. The fact that they started at right back, obviously Maitland-Niles seems to want to be a midfield player. He's quite a laid-back character as well. I kind of could see a little bit of Michael Thomas in Maitland-Niles a couple of years ago. His career hasn't quite blossomed in the same way, maybe. I mean, I know he's out on loan at the moment, but I mean, I don't know what you guys think about that. Can you see any sort of comparisons there, maybe a little bit?
Richard, there are parallels, but where it ends is the finishing. He could finish, Michael Thomas.
Oh, yeah, of course.
No, could not finish, in all fairness. He missed quite a few goals. Not loads, but a few. Whereas Thomas, if he went through, you thought, this is a goal. You never thought that about Ainsley Maitland-Niles.
But then, I mean, Michael Thomas, when he first got in the team at right back, he used to take penalties. He was our penalty taker for a while, scored a lot of penalties. Yeah, he did. Yeah, his first 5 or 6 goals for the team were penalties when he was playing right back. I think it was a season before '89 when he first broke into the team. And of course, Maitland-Niles, his penalties, he's got quite a good penalty style.
Terrific penalty taker. Yeah.
So so I could kind of see I've seen a few kind of comparisons with him maybe, but yeah, obviously Michael Thomas was obviously had a much better career with Arsenal. But Ainsley's still got time. Maybe if he comes back, you never know. I can't see him ever getting a midfield spot on a regular basis, unfortunately, in the team, which is a shame because that's obviously where he wants to play. But yeah, that was just something that just came to my head when a couple of years ago watching Maitland-Niles and thinking maybe he could be the next Michael Thomas, maybe, but unfortunately not quite. It's not quite worked out that way.
With our poor midfield over the last few seasons, where we've been very weak in a defensive midfield player, if he can't get into the midfield, then he'll never get into it.
Yep.
So I don't see him ever getting into it now.
No, I agree. Yeah, I mean there was that game, wasn't it? I think was there one game at Old Trafford he played in midfield, didn't he? Under Wenger, he had a really good game, and there was one at the Emirates as well. I can't remember who that was against when he was brilliant in midfield actually. And you think, oh, he's got potential here. He was getting forward, he was getting back, he was an all-round midfielder, but it never really led to him getting a long run in the team there, did it, for one reason or another, which was maybe a shame. But yeah, I don't think it's going to quite work for him, is it? And I think maybe we might have seen the last of him at Arsenal, perhaps. See how this loan goes for him, but we'll see. Another player who didn't actually play that many times for Arsenal at all, but I think he played a few more times for Benfica, is this guy.
Willock.
Yeah, Chris Willock.
He spent a lot of his time in the B team. He was mostly B team player. I believe he played 1 or 2 times for the A team, but nothing, nothing important. He didn't really make an impact. He was a decent player on the B team, but again, I think he had been there for so long. He didn't get his chance at Arsenal, didn't really get his chance at Benfica, so he was looking to, move elsewhere to see if he can get his chance. He's in the Championship now, isn't he? I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Huddersfield, I think it is, isn't it? Something like that, is it?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I mean, I think the difference is obviously Benfica's beating, don't they? Play like the second tier of Portuguese football, don't they? So it's not like the reserve league that we have here, the under 23s. It's actually a proper league, isn't it? As such, it's like the second division, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah. So it's the second division, and then Benfica has also a U23 team as well, which is odd to me. But yeah, so the B team plays in the second division, which would be equivalent to maybe League 2.
Yeah.
Competitiveness wise.
Yeah, I mean, I say obviously now he's, like you said, he's back in the Championship in England, so maybe that's the kind of level where he is. Unfortunately, he's not quite up to the level of his brother, is he, or either of his brothers, perhaps? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think he only played 1 game for Arsenal. Do you remember much about? Did you watch him play for Arsenal at all, Melvin? Do you remember him play? I think he played 1 game in the League Cup. I think he did, maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
I don't recall it.
No, I think it was only that 1 game actually, but I think at one time he was looked on to be a brighter prospect than Joe actually.
Yeah.
But for some reason it never. I mean, it's never really quite happened for Joe either at Arsenal. If we're honest, he's been a bit hit or miss, but he's doing well at Newcastle actually at the minute. They seem to really like him, so hopefully he can turn his career around now. And finally, there's one other player that I found who did play for both clubs, and it's obviously it's a sad story, but a great player. At Arsenal, certainly.
Oh yeah. Oh dear. Shame.
Yeah. So very sad story there. I mean, I thought he was brilliant for Arsenal until Man United kicked him off the pitch that day, and he never quite wanted to play again after that much, did he? I think he wasn't that happy with English football after that game. He didn't get much protection, did he? And it was a little while later. I think he went. Did he have a season on loan at Benfica? Wasn't it?
He was on loan at Real Madrid from Arsenal.
Yeah.
And then he ended up signing for Atleti Madrid. And then he was loaned to Benfica from Atletico Madrid for 1 season.
And how did he get on there?
He did well. He was a typical player that you saw at Arsenal, right? Vibrant. He was energetic with the ball. He was always looking to progress the ball forward. Unfortunately, he only ended up playing 1 season with the club. But he was one of those fan favorites just because of the passion and everything that he essentially left it all on the pitch, right? You knew what you were going to get from him game in, game out. There were no surprises. He may have been on an off day, but from an energy perspective, it was always there. He was always turned on. And like you said, it was unfortunate that, he ended up passing at such a young age.
Yeah, no,
I remember I remember 1 game I went to. We played away at Fulham. I went to this game, and I think we might have been 1-0 down, and he turned it round for us. I think he scored 1 or 2 goals. He was outstanding. He basically, like Ian Wright used to do. He used to pick us up by himself and get us over the line. He had an amazing game. He played some. I mean, some of the goals he got as well. The Middlesbrough one when we won, was it 5-2 when we beat him? Beautiful way, cut it back onto his right foot. The one where against Chelsea, was it the FA Cup where he scored a couple?
Yeah,
it might have been his first home game. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was.
I know, and I think he played very well. Unless I'm mistaken, I think against Real Madrid, we played them, and he played an excellent game, and they signed him the next season.
That's right. Yeah. The year he reached the Champions League final, wasn't it? And he went a year after that. He was a great another player of a great left foot as well.
Yep. Oh, terrific.
They seem to stand out more, don't they, left-footed players? I don't know whether it's the way that they move, the way that they pass the ball. They seem to leave more of an impression. I mean, maybe it's because I'm left-footed myself. I maybe notice it more, but they leave more of an impression on me, left-footed players, than maybe right-footed players do. I don't know.
They seem better dribblers for some reason. They seem to go past the player better for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. I think it's the way that they run and kick the ball. It just looks different, doesn't it, than everybody else, I guess, and some maybe more so than others. I mean, some of the greatest players have been left with, haven't they? Messi, Maradona, so I think they do tend to maybe stand out a little bit more, perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I can't think of anybody else that's played for both clubs. I don't know whether you might know anybody else, Mike, obviously following both clubs for such a long time.
No, those were actually the names that I had. I actually forgot about Chris Willock, but I had everyone else on my list.
Oh, yes, I'm glad I didn't miss anybody out then. Have you got anyone else, Melvin, that you can think of?
No, you got them all. I didn't know about Chris Willock, but I'll be honest with you, I didn't know that one. So caught me out on a couple there, actually.
No, well, I say he only really played that one game for Arsenal, so I guess he's you don't easily associate him with Arsenal other than with his brother. That's probably it. Well, his two brothers, actually. Yep. Well, I don't think the other one played for Arsenal, did he? Matt Willock. I don't think he did. Was at Manchester United, wasn't he, initially? I don't know where he's... Yep. I don't know where he's gone now, actually. His career's not really took off either, has it, actually? Joe probably had the best career out of all of them, which obviously is good for him, but maybe not as expected as we thought. So, yeah, I mean, that was quite a bit of fun, wasn't it, looking at some of them players that's play for both clubs. What we do now, obviously, we'll move back on to, obviously, tomorrow night's game, and we will have a look at this. Now, I was looking at the Benfica side that played the last couple of games, and like you said, it's been more of a 4-4-2, hasn't it? What do you anticipate? I know you said it might be a bit of a surprise in the formation and stuff. What would be your expected sort of starting 11 for tomorrow, then, Mike?
My expected 11 is that he would stick with the 4-4-2. The goalkeeper, I would imagine he's going to go with Odysseas. He threw everyone a curveball this last match and threw Elton Leighton. I don't think one is significantly better than the other. So I don't think if we lose the fixture, it's not going to be through the goalkeeper. The back line, Otamendi, Vertonghen obviously going to start. On the left, Grimaldo, Barcelona product. On the right, Gilberto, which is a player that we signed from Fluminense this year, which I think in that right spot is where this match could be won and lost. He's a player who doesn't have much pace. He likes to have the ball at his feet. He could tend to lose the ball in possession a few times and create some issues there. So I think between the outside backs, left back, right back, I think that could be where Arsenal could create a lot of problems for Benfica.
Your left back's pretty good, though, isn't he? Your left back, is he not a decent player?
The thing with him is he's good going forward. He's similar to Bellerin. He reminds me a lot of Bellerin. Going forward, he can, and Bellerin not so much now after his injury. Before his injury, going forward, he was very good. Defensively, he has a lot of lapses. Positionally, he gets caught out of position. His awareness off the ball, similar to Bellerin, he will get caught ball watching. They'll get in behind, create all sorts of problems. So the thing here is, I honestly think that he's going to go with a back three to try to confuse things a little bit. And in that event, Grimaldo moves a little bit further up, or he does like we did against Porto in the league match a month or so ago, where he went with a 4-4-2, but he played Grimaldo as a left midfielder and played Nuno Tavares as a left back. Nuno Tavares is a natural left back, not very good, but he's a physical guy. He's pacey, so he can throw his body about. So I think those are probably the two options, or potentially the two, pull a rabbit out of a hat type of thing that he might go with. In the midfield, Weigel's an automatic on that team sheet, former Dortmund player, German international. He started off slow with Benfica. The last 2 months, he's really established himself. He's an automatic on the team sheet. So he gives us a little bit of balance. Alongside him, it's most likely going to be Tanat. Again, last couple of games, he's starting to kind of grow into himself. So I see him starting in the midfield. On the right, Rafa Silva. And on the left, it's most likely going to be, I'm going to say he's going to go with Servi instead of Everton. Reason for that is Servi helps defend a little bit more. He's tireless up and down that left side. I think with the likes of Saka on one side, most likely Pepe on the other side, right? We're going to need someone who's going to be able to compensate and help that left back and right back, in those one-on-one situations. Everton is more of a guy that he's very soft-footed. He's not going to put his foot in. He's not going to get into a challenge. So I would like to think that he's probably going to go with Servi on that left side. Up top, I think he's going to go with Darwin Nunez. Again, transfer record signing. And I'm going to say Waldschmidt, former Freiburg player, in behind him, playing as kind of a second forward and end up being a triangle in that midfield. For Benfica side, I say Rafa Silva is the player to watch. He's that guy like Saka who will come deep, take on players. Not as good with the ball at his feet, but he is fast. Once he gets going, it causes a lot of problems. So if he's on an on game, I think he's going to be Benfica's key to winning this first leg. If he's not on an on game, I see it being very difficult for Benfica to penetrate that back line that has had its moments, but I think has started to grow into itself and look a little bit more organized over the course of the last month and a half, 2 months.
Does he play on the right then, Rafa Silva?
Rafa will play on the right. Servi will play on the left. Rafa's a natural right footer. Servi's a natural left player. Even if Everton plays instead of Servi, they do tend to switch. The thing with Rafa is for example, he's able to play on the left or the right, but he's also able to interchange with the second forward. So if Waldschmidt plays there, Waldschmidt's able to kind of come outside. Rafa likes to come inside a lot. Even though he's playing on the wing, he likes to come in. He's not a player that's going to get down to the line and cross the ball in. He's going to pick the ball up. He's going to go down. He's going to come inside, cut inside, try to get in between lines. He gives us that outlet behind the back line. So that's another thing to be cautious for if Arsenal looks to play a high line. But I think he's going to be the key to our success tomorrow if we are to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we haven't got our main left back, have we? Kieran Tierney probably won't be playing, so there's an opportunity to exploit maybe Cedric, who isn't natural in that position. And just a couple of things here for you, Mike, actually. Shane's there asking about Thiago Thomas.
Yeah, he's a Sporting youth product. He's playing regularly in the Sporting team now. Of course, they're top of the league. They're playing well. He's one of those guys that he's still young, still green, has a lot of potential. He's a workhorse. He'll come in deep, get the ball at his feet, distribute. He'll turn around. You can play long balls to him all game. He will get on the end of them. He is tireless. So I think he would be a good signing in terms of he brings that energy that maybe Arsenal doesn't have today consistently across that front line.
Well, it sounds it could be a good option for us. And do you think it'll cost a lot, actually?
I think the price tag that I saw was 20 million, which I think he's 19 years old. I think there's a lot of room for growth there, and with the football market today, I think that's low risk, high reward.
Yeah, no, it sounds it could be a good one for us. And Joey was saying about has Ruben Diaz been a big loss? Obviously, Otamendi's coming to replace him, so I'm assuming he has been a big loss.
He has. Otamendi's actually been one of our best players. He started off a little bit slow, but Ruben Diaz is a guy that's been through the academy at Benfica. He knows what it's like to be a Benfica fan, Benfica player. Ironically, ever since he left, Benfica struggled defensively. But then again, we also had a brand new back four, right? We had injuries. We had two players that never played together. We had outside backs that never played together. So they have the second best defense in the Portuguese league today, but we went through a period, and even today, it feels like we're always susceptible to conceding a goal. So Ruben Diaz, as you can see what he's offering to Manchester City now,
Yeah.
he's a loss for anyone, especially given what you could see that he's offering.
Yeah, no, definitely he's a good player. So Melvin, what are you thinking? How did you think Arsenal are going to approach this game? What sort of lineup do you think we'll do? Obviously, I was expecting maybe a few more changes to the Leeds game, resting a few for this game, but we went full strength against Leeds, really, what we had, and we've got to do the same again, haven't we, surely?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we play a very similar team. We played the goalie, obviously, in the back four will be the same. I know seeing his training now, but I don't think he's going to put him in this game too early. The midfield would be Ceballos and Xhaka. They played him. And the front four, if you want to put it that way, I think he will play Saka. I know we shouldn't overplay him, but I think we need to play him. He makes us tick. Yeah. I think on the other side, he will play Pepe. And I think he'd put Aubameyang, a game with Aubameyang, and might have Martin behind them. Aubameyang have Martin in the team.
You don't think Martinelli might not play?
He should have brought him on with 20 minutes to go on Sunday. There's no reason not to put him on there. For some reason, he hasn't played him, so I don't know if there's anything happening. I hope not. He had every opportunity to put him on rather than Willian the other day, the way the game was going. Everything pointed to that. And it's I mean, let's put it this way. If he could have brought on Pepe as well, but you can understand why he didn't. But Pepe, I think, will get the nod tomorrow night. You can understand that. But if Martinelli doesn't get the nod, I don't think he will get the nod tomorrow. You got to scratch your head. Why wasn't the last 20 minutes? Because he'd have been the perfect guy. If they were attacking us, we wanted to break quick. With his speed, he'd been perfect. But I don't know. But that's something of a negative I took out of Sunday's game, apart from Bellerin for the second goal.
Yeah, I mean that was the biggest negative for me. That Willian gets brought on as a first option from the bench when we had Martinelli there, we had Pepe there. I mean, I felt a little bit sorry for Pepe actually because he'd had a couple of decent games against Southampton, scored a great goal against Wolves. He scored a great goal, and then he's a little bit, maybe drops his level very slightly against Aston Villa, as did several players. And he gets straight away left out of the team, whereas other players stay in the team and they maybe have 3 or 4 poor performances in a row. He's allowed 1, and then he's left out of the team. He doesn't even get on against Leeds. I mean, I think he deserves a place in the team again. Whether or not that will be tomorrow, I'm not really sure. But I'd like to see Martinelli just getting more minutes on the pitch because I think he needs to. He's not played that much this season at all, has he? I think he started maybe 2 or 3 games. He's had a couple of injuries as well, which doesn't help. But I want to see him playing again because he was so exciting last season, and potentially he could be a match winner for us in a lot of these games, and especially these European games where away goals and stuff are going to be important. He's a sort of player that can maybe come on and get one. I mean, I'm not expecting too many changes from the weekend, but I think he's going to have to maybe rest 2 or 3. Maybe Smith Rowe, to me, maybe could do with a rest. He's played a lot of games lately. He's not played badly, but I think maybe he could do with a rest perhaps and say maybe Pepe coming in for him. I mean, I would be tempted to give Martinelli some time maybe from the bench, but I mean, we've not made many changes from the last 2 or 3 league games. We're making little changes here and there, but the core of the team's staying the same because it has to, because we don't have the depth, do we? And that's our problem now when we've got a big game tomorrow, we've got the league leaders on Sunday, we've got Benfica again next week, we've then got the team in second place in the league the Sunday after. So, massive games, and we don't have the squad to keep rotating, do we, really? Certainly not in midfield with Thomas Partey out. Obviously, Kieran Tierney, hopefully he'll play in some of these games, maybe not tomorrow, but going forward. I mean, what would you do then, Mike? Obviously, with your Arsenal hat on, maybe. What would you look at for the Arsenal team tomorrow?
I would say Pepe has to come in. I think just his style of play is going to create all sorts of problems for the Benfica outside backs, regardless of what side he plays on. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays Aubameyang and Lacazette in this game. I wouldn't do it. But I wouldn't be surprised. I think Saka has to start. He just brings too much to the table. He's one of those guys that from 1 minute to the next, he can create something out of nothing. I would agree with Smith Rowe. I think he probably needs a break. Partey not being available, I think, is a big difference maker here, because if Partey's available with Xhaka, I think the back line, I think, is better than Benfica's. I think the midfield then becomes better than Benfica's, and the offensive line becomes better than Benfica's. I think with Partey out and Xhaka in there with most likely Ceballos, almost kind of levels it out a little bit for Arsenal or for Benfica in that midfield. Weigl isn't the type of gritty tackling type of player that Xhaka is, but he's more of a sure pass out of the back, right, where we know Xhaka is capable of a mistake. Ceballos is also capable of a mistake. He's the type of player that likes to have the ball on his feet, taking risks further back in the pitch, which could create some problems. So I think Partey not being there is a big gap there. The back line, I think it chews itself. I know we, on our podcast, we had Max from Our Spros on, and he had mentioned he thinks that Rob Holding comes in to the back line with Gabriel. I'm going to say that this back line is most likely going to be Gabriel and David Luiz. I don't know if you guys think Rob Holding comes into this.
No, I agree. I would play the same that played on the weekend, which was David Luiz and Gabriel. Yeah, I think if anybody would be left out of those two, you'd probably go maybe bring Holding in for Gabriel possibly, rather than for David Luiz. That's what I would be thinking myself. But I don't think that should be changed actually, because Gabriel's been playing reasonably well. He certainly plays better alongside David Luiz than he does alongside Rob Holding. I think that's been quite clear. So yeah, if he's going to change anybody there, I would maybe bring Holding in for Gabriel or leave it as is. I certainly think David Luiz should play anyway, definitely, because of the experience that he brings, and obviously against his former club as well. So he's maybe got a little bit more of an insight. I know it's been a long time since he played at Benfica, but I'm sure he's got a bit more of an insight into the sort of way the club's kind of the ethos of the club and stuff like that, which I think could be quite important as well. So, but yeah, I mean, I think so. That would probably be my kind of take on it in terms of the central defence. Anyway, I mean, I'll be amazed if he plays Gabriel and Holding. The last two games they've played together, we haven't been that great at all. And I just think it'll be far too risky to go with that in this particular game. But Arteta does. We've said it on this show quite a lot. He does tend to throw a bit like what you're saying with JJ at Benfica. He does throw a few funny ones in, doesn't he, to catch us out. I mean, I don't think I've ever predicted a starting 11 exactly as Arteta's put it out, because he's always made he's thrown one or two in that you're thinking, oh, I wasn't expecting that. And he does it near enough every single game. So I'm expecting the same again. So maybe it will be Gabriel and Rob Holding at the back then. Maybe that's what he will go with, or maybe he won't play. Maybe he'll put Otamendi. He'll put Odegaard maybe back into the midfield into a deeper position, maybe instead of Ceballos. Although Ceballos played well at the weekend, he could throw something like that in Arteta. I wouldn't be surprised.
I've met anyone on this planet who's predicted the Arteta lineup yet.
No,
no one been born yet that's actually managed to predict the exact 11 that he would start with. Not been possible. No. Sorry.
There's always one or two he throws in that you're thinking, where did that come from? He does it every game, doesn't he? You never can read his mind. I mean, I say at the weekend it was probably playing Smith Rowe and Odegaard together in the same starting 11, which was a little bit of a surprise. I didn't think he would do that, but he did. And there's always one or two, isn't there, that we're never sure about. But let's hope whatever team he picks, it's going to be a team that can compete in this game. And that kind of moves us on nicely to the last section, actually. Must be a tough one for Mike this to come up with a score prediction when it's the two teams that he follows most. I mean, I wouldn't like to be in that position. So we'll start with Melvin, just to give Mike a little bit more time to maybe think about it. Well, what are you thinking, Melvin, for this one? Bearing in mind, it is technically the away leg, although it's at a neutral ground.
It makes a hell of a lot of difference, doesn't it? Technically, the away leg makes so much difference. Hope the crowd don't get in their back. I'm going for a 2-0 win for the Arsenal. We've got a bit of momentum now. Come on.
Wow.
Bit of momentum. Yeah, 2-0.
Wow, that's a very optimistic prediction. Very, very. But well, no, I mean that'd be good. But I don't know. I don't think I'm quite as optimistic as that. What are you thinking then, Mike? I know obviously you probably have got more of an insight into both teams actually. So your score prediction is going to be a lot more probably accurate than what ours might be.
I'm gonna say my heart says 2-1 for Benfica, but my head says it's going to be 1-1 And like I said, I think the first 20, 25 minutes are going to decide the outcome of these two matches. I think if Arsenal scores early, it could get bad for Benfica, because if we go at it, if we try to play, offensive football, I think Arsenal is just going to pick us apart. So if it's very tactical, very nervy to begin with, feeling each other out, seeing kind of what they're going to bring to the table, I predict two very cagey, tactical, almost boring fixtures. My head says this one will be 1-1.
Yeah, I mean, I did a preview video yesterday. I put it out, and I actually said 1-1 in my video, just because, I was looking at Benfica's recent results. Like you said before, Benfica do seem quite solid at the back. They're not conceding a lot of goals, maybe not scoring enough at the other end, which has been a similar problem that we've had most of the season, actually. So, what you said there about it being maybe two boringish games, I could see how that could work out, because both teams are quite solid at the back and not scoring enough goals. So you could kind of see where that could be the case. But I did predict 1-1 in my video yesterday, so I'm going to stick with that for this game. I mean, we may as well go the whole hog and predict for the second leg as well. Then, what would you say for that, then, Melvin? Obviously, we're 2-0 up in the first leg for you, so it's nice and easy to predict the second leg, isn't it?
1-0 to us. 1-0. I don't want to go 1-0 up, because we normally get beat. No, 1-0 up. 1-0.
And Joel's in the chat there. He's going for 2-0 as well. And he can't believe he's agreeing with Melvin. I mean, he never agrees with you, does he, Melvin? I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, he's gone 2-0 as well. So Mike, then the big question then is, it's 1-1 after the first leg. Who goes through?
I'm going to say in the second leg, it's going to be 1-1. And Benfica wins in extra time, just like they did in 91.
Oh, no. Don't do that.
Mystic Mike.
Oh, no. I don't think I could go through that again. Although, obviously, this time it isn't actually at home. So, as such, it won't maybe be quite as bad as that particular night. But the whole thing about all this is, because it is neutral venues, both grounds, it's difficult to really know how the teams are going to adapt to the stadiums. I mean, we've played in the Olympic Stadium in Rome before, not recently, and we've played at Athens as well, again not recently. We don't have a particularly good record at either ground, in all honesty, but I don't know. I think it makes it a little bit slightly more tricky to predict because of that reason, because usually you'd think, well, if you're at home, I would say if we was playing at the Emirates in the second leg, I would be confident of us going through, getting a draw away and getting a win at home. I'd be pretty confident that that's how it would pan out. But with it being at a neutral venue, it's a lot of travelling involved, going to Athens and stuff like that. I don't know. I think if it is 1-1 tomorrow, which is what I was predicting, then I think the second leg could go either way, for the reason that there is no advantage, is there? There's no home advantage for either team. I don't know. Obviously, I'm going to have to predict that Arsenal go through, just to put the ghost of 91 behind me finally, once and for all, I guess. But I think it'll be tight in the second leg. I'll maybe go 2-1 to Arsenal in the second leg and 1-1 in the first leg, and Arsenal will just scrape through, and hopefully then we can push on and go a lot further in the competition, maybe all the way to the final would be nice. So obviously, I know we did a couple of years ago, it didn't go particularly well, did it? But yeah, I think I'll go with that. But I think it's personally difficult to predict, simply because of the neutral venue. I just think it's so difficult to know how, the size of the pitch and what the pitch is like. I mean, the Emirates pitch is beautiful, isn't it? So, Arsenal know how to play on that pitch. Mm-hmm. You're playing 2 legs away from home. I just think it's going to be difficult to call. Shane is not too optimistic about the weekend anyway.
The second leg is going to be the curse of Olympiacos. They knocked us out of Europe last year, and Benfica is going to knock them out of Europe in their stadium this year.
Actually, that's a good point, because
that's where the second leg is.
Having said that, though, we did win the away leg against Olympiacos last year, didn't we? It was at home where we blew it again, similar to what we did against Benfica.
Correct.
That last time around. But yeah, we did actually win. That's actually unusual for us to win away in Athens, actually. So we did manage to win that last year. Forgotten about that. That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because Olympiacos it did for us last year. So it's not looking. The signs aren't good, are they? Maybe this is the curse coming back for us now. Maybe it's our European curse. Olympiacos curse maybe coming for us. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But no, I mean, I think it's going to be 2 tight games anyway, and I think it's difficult to call. And let's hope they're not boring games as you predicted. Let's hope there's some excitement as well. There's some good football. There is some talented players on both sides as well, which is good. And obviously, we know your 2 central defenders quite well from their days in the Premier League. So, I'm sure Aubameyang has he's scored a few goals past both of them too over the years. So hopefully, we're looking for a couple more as well. But we'll see how that works out. But Otamendi, for me, I know you said he's been having a good season, but for Man City, he always looked very, very accident prone, didn't he?
He did, but he was also part of one of, he won the title with Pep. He was an automatic on their team sheet. He's very much like David Luiz, right? He's capable of having that mistake, but he brings a lot to the table. He's got experience. He's got grit. He'll get stuck in. He's capable of playing short. He's capable of playing a long ball in the air. He's strong. But again, it's easy for a fan to say, well, look at that mistake he made, right? And disregard, the 4 or 5 successful performances that he had that were positive.
No, I totally agree with that. I mean, how's Vertonghen been playing then? Because obviously he had a long career at Tottenham, didn't he? He actually scored a winner against us last season, didn't he? So,
yeah, he's one of those silent performers. He started off slow, but he doesn't, he doesn't do anything brilliant. He doesn't stand out, but he's a solid defender. Again, he gives you that ability to play out from the back. He's creating a good partnership now with Otamendi. I think there was an issue at the beginning, language barrier. Otamendi speaks probably a little bit of English, but the players that were around him at Manchester City also probably were able to speak Spanish with him as well. The manager was Spanish, right? So it probably facilitated a little bit for him. But over the course of the last month and a half, they look a little bit a more organized unit than they did maybe in the first 5-6 games that they played together.
Oh, okay. So I know I've seen obviously your defensive record has been pretty decent, certainly over the last sort of 10, 11 games or so. You're not conceding a lot of goals, so they seem to have complemented each other quite well. So we'll see how that plans out. So obviously tomorrow with Aubameyang and Saka's going to be running at them, and maybe Lacazette as well. I mean, I know you said you think
different challenge.
Both of them might play. I mean, that could be what maybe that'd be the curveball Arteta throws in, playing them both, maybe playing 2 strikers through the middle. I mean, it tends to be Aubameyang tends to go to the left, doesn't he, when Lacazette plays? Yeah. And then Lacazette obviously drops deep to get the ball, and then Aubameyang has to make them runs into the centre, which kind of works in some games if the midfield's right. And unfortunately, it hasn't been much of the season. But maybe with Smith Rowe or with Odegaard in there, maybe that might work better going forward, because obviously Aubameyang's been out of the side, and then he came in and Lacazette was left out of the weekend, so they haven't actually played together for a while. And last time when they did, Aubameyang was off his game completely, wasn't he, due to his other issues. So it's good that he's finally back in the goals again. Let's hope it's the start of a good run for him for now till the end of the season. He can get back to sort of numbers that we would have expected for him. Well, I mean, it's been brilliant having you on, Mike, to get a real good insight into the goings on at Benfica and what to expect from them over these 2 games, obviously starting tomorrow. Just give your channel a plug as well, because I know you do some great stuff on there, don't you?
Yeah, so our Benfica podcast is O Cantinho Benfiquista. We're on YouTube, on Facebook, and then again, like we had talked about offline, we have our own Arsenal podcast, Guns and Yellow Ribbons. Some of you might be familiar with it. So check them out on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube as well. And it was a pleasure. Thanks for the invite. Pleasure to be chatting with you guys. It's a difficult moment being on both sides, standing on top of the fence, trying to decide what side you want to jump down onto. But hopefully it's a good match, good 2 matches. It's exciting, and hopefully it'll be a good thing to watch, and I guess may the best team win. Yeah,
at least you're guaranteed getting one team in the next round. Unlike us, we might have to go through the agony of 91 again and be out. But let's hope not. But we'll see. And Ben in the chat there has just said he thinks Odegaard will start tomorrow. Yeah, I'll be surprised if he doesn't. But then nothing surprises me when it comes to Arteta picking the team. So we'll see. And thanks again, Melvin, as well for coming on. Where can people find you? I know you don't have your own channel yet, but I'm sure one day you will.
Thanks again, Richard. It's been lovely to meet you, Mike. Really
Likewise.
nice to meet you. Really enjoyed it. Bit of an education for me tonight. You find me on here, or from Where to Dole Square, or on Mr. Arsenal 89 with the boys there doing the watch-alongs normally, and the quiz. Yeah, quiz. So, and also my Twitter handle is, as you can see, Melvin. The only way is Arsenal marks. So there we go. Thank you very much.
Definitely worth following Melvin as well. Just tomorrow on the channel, I will be doing. Gary's in the chat as well. Thanks for watching, Gary. And Albert as well was in a little bit earlier as well. I'll put his thing up on the screen as well. So yeah, smash the likes as Albert says. I'll catch up with your show as well later on. I know we clashed each other tonight, didn't we? Both were at the same time, but I'll catch up with yours later on. So yeah, I mean, I'll be doing a watch along tomorrow at the game. Go live about 7:45. Go through the team news and all that kind of stuff and the game. And I'll be doing some fan reaction afterwards as well. I mean, I don't know if you're around, Mike. Afterwards, you want to pop down and do a fan reaction after the game, but sort of just after 10 o'clock. Are you around or?
Yeah, it should be around. Just shoot me a message on Twitter, and hopefully we can figure something out.
Yeah, okay. I know Melvin's coming on as well, and a few others as well. So I'll be doing that after the game about 10 o'clock tomorrow as well. And then Friday, of course, I've got another live show, which will be the Manchester City preview. I've got a Manchester City fan coming on as well, so I'm excited about that. Although I don't think we'll be too excited about the game on Sunday, will we? Let's be honest. I think that's probably the one game where we can all agree that we're probably not going to win. But stranger things have happened, I guess, and you know, Arteta is certainly due a league win over Pep, isn't he? Because he's lost every single game he's played in the league against him since he came to Arsenal. So let's hope that run can end. But yes, I'll be doing it on Friday, and then obviously building up to Sunday, I'll be doing another watch along as well of that game against Manchester City. If I can actually stand to watch the whole thing, depending on how it goes, I can see us being 3 or 4-0 down quite early on, as we usually are when they come to the Emirates. But we can talk about that on Friday anyway. So obviously, thanks to you guys in the chat as well. Obviously, Ben and Gary, Shane. Albert, I say he pops in as well. There's military Guerrilla TV was in as well earlier. Thanks for watching. Russ as well, Ryan as well earlier on, and of course a mate of yours there, Mike as well, Lewis there. Obviously, must be a fan of your channel as well. So good. Thanks for tuning in as well. So I say thanks to everyone for watching. Thanks I say to you guys, particularly Mike, for his great insight into Benfica, and obviously Melvin as always. So stay tuned to the channel. Loads coming up over the next few days. I'm going to be busy actually. A lot of stuff going on, so it's good. And in the meantime, of course, enjoy the game tomorrow. I say stay tuned for the fan reaction show after the game as well. And in the meantime, of course, as always, come on, you Gunners. Let's get through Europa League. Sorry, Mike.